That's enough. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
I'm here to ask Albanese a question.
Last year, the Prime Minister was ambushed in his hotel lobby by far-right figures boasting of being fed private intel during the last election campaign.
Albo, how do you feel about the rise in immigration, mate? Do you think it's fair? Yep. Do you think it's fair?
Thank you, sir.
No, you don't need to touch me. I'm not touching anyone.
The incident was one of about a dozen stunts targeting Labor, the Greens and some independents.
How can Australians have a go when we don't get a go, mate? We're only getting crumbs. High immigration affects rental prices. High immigration keeps wages stagnant.
It turns out this wasn't just about influencers trying to generate content. It was allegedly a coordinated campaign paid for by a wealthy Christian sect. I'm Ruby Jones, and you're listening to 7am. Today, investigative journalist at The Age, Sherryn Groch, on the exclusive Brethren, its bags of cash, and connections to the Liberal Party. It's Tuesday, August 25. So, Sherryn, let's begin by going back to last year, to the very first day of the federal election campaign. Anthony Albanese was out on the hustings, but he was interrupted at his press conference by this fringe anti-immigration influencer. Tell me what happened next.
Yeah, so right on day one of the campaign, things are kicking off at an urgent care clinic in Brisbane, and this far-right activist called Lawrence McIntyre, he goes by What's News Online. He suddenly crashes things and starts yelling about housing and immigration.
I think 1.8 million immigrants in 5 years is going to increase demand on the medical system. What about the fact that people my age can't get any housing, we can't get rentals anymore? We have no future in this country anymore. Don't you think that's kind of ridiculous?
And it doesn't take much Googling to see he's been pictured recently hanging out with notorious neo-Nazis at a white supremacist gathering in Melbourne.
This is our land. This is our country. Understand that? And those people in there are robbing us of our future. We're not going to be able to have kids. He's committed to 1.8 million immigrants in 5 years, while all of our infrastructure is overburdened.
So then more of these stunts just started to pop up, a wave of these far-right disruptions that we hadn't really seen before then in Australian politics, including two far-right guys ambushing the Prime Minister in his hotel lobby in Melbourne.
And I have a question for you, Mr Albanese. When are you going to put Australians first? Albanese, when are you going to put Australians first?
I realised then that all of them had some kind of tie to the neo-Nazi group, the National Socialist Network, whether they'd been pictured together or they used to be part of the same white supremacist gyms and things like that. I found a live stream of one of the guys involved, he's a former Proud Boy, saying they were part of this small secret group that had been running what he called an influence campaign, pretending to be everyday Aussies just asking reasonable questions, but disrupting campaign events. And they were being fed this private intel on the Prime Minister and other candidates' locations. So when we reported that, security was tightened, understandably, on the campaign trail. There was a lot of questions about how the hell did these guys get the PM's location so readily? But it really did look like it was just the Nazis pulling a new bag of tricks. Well, it turns out I only had half the story.
Okay, so tell me what you've uncovered then about what was actually going on behind the scenes here.
Look, it really did seem bonkers to me when I first heard it from a whistleblower, but the far-right guys, it turns out, weren't just doing these stunts to push their own anti-immigration agenda. They were actually being paid by elders of a wealthy Christian sect called the Exclusive Brethren to carry out part of the church's wider multi-million-dollar campaign effort to see the Liberals elected. So we found evidence of about a dozen really senior people in the church coordinating with a small group of these far-right guys, including sharing photos of the stunts, using pay ID, to also handing over bundles of cash and tracking the PM's plane. They gave them intel on where the candidates were going to be, who to target. In some cases, they transported them there and they tailed say, the Prime Minister's car or another candidate's car to an event. They got them to heckle them, to film, and then really quickly distribute that across social media and other far-right media to just generate a lot of headlines. And they were pretty successful. Some of this was also posted by the conservative political lobby group Advance, which itself received nearly about 700 grand in donations from Brethren businessmen last year. Advance told me they had no idea about the campaign, but a couple of guys who have been linked to their campaigns also took part in this. And they were really targeting the Prime Minister. They were targeting people like Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer, Penny Wong.
Penny Wong, why has Labor been restricting freedom of speech for Australians? Can you answer to that? Why weren't Australians allowed in tonight to this event?
But also a few Greens MPs and also a few independents like Mick Ryan. The idea really was to disrupt Labor, Greens, independent candidates using these notorious figures who were outside the church so as to sort of cast suspicion away from the Brethren, not only from the public, but from their own flock, because Brethren members would be really horrified to see their elders carrying out this kind of dirty tricks campaign.
Right. Okay. And so tell me a bit more about the exclusive Brethren then. Who are they and why would they be doing this?
The exclusive Brethren have been around for decades. They've got about 50,000 members all over the world, but their base is really here under world leader Bruce Hales. They're incredibly wealthy, a lot of these senior elders. They have mansions and businesses everywhere. There's been some really horrible stories of life inside this sect, particularly for women and families who have been separated. The Prime Minister and many others have called them a cult over the years. Normally, though, the Brethren have really strict rules to shun the outside world. They're not meant to even break bread with outsiders and share meals. I recently reported they'd ordered their members to kill and purge all their pets, for example, because they were seen as distracting them from their devotion to this sect. But they do also have this long history of intervening in elections for the Liberal Party. My colleague Michael Batchelard, he has a really long history of reporting on these guys for more than 20 years, including when they were helping the Howard government and secretly meeting with Howard way back then. Now, during the last election, he uncovered thousands of the Brethren had come out undercover, and there were leaked videos showing senior elders basically coaching members on how to blend in, how to be aggressive, how to be evasive if someone asks who you really are, all to keep pushing these voters towards the Liberal Party.
And so, Sherryn, all of this activity then, it was designed to hurt Labor, the Greens, independents in order to try to help Peter Dutton win that election. So tell me a bit more about how close the operation actually was to the Liberal Party.
Well, while a lot of coalition staffers did know that there were Brethren out at campaigns, even if they presented themselves as, we're just concerned Christian businessmen here to help you with your low volunteer numbers. Certainly a lot of those people knew who was helping them. In the case, though, of this separate stunt operation, it was held much closer to the chest. So while a few people within the coalition did know about stunts at different times, it's a little bit unclear if they really understood the bigger picture. It sounds like only a few people were clued in. A lot of this was very much Brethren-led. The people we found in those conversations and on that evidence trail were senior Brethren elders. Some Liberal MPs did tell us more broadly too about, they'd say no to Brethren out campaigning for them. They'd rock up in their T-shirts with their sort of name on it and they'd say, look, I'm not interested. And those same people would rock up the next day for their neighbouring candidate.
But even since you exposed it, it seems like the coalition hasn't backed away from its relationship with the Brethren. Over the weekend, we saw Angus Taylor and Tony Abbott at this event that the church was involved in. Tell me about what the party leadership has done and said since you had these allegations.
Yes, that's been a particularly surprising thing. I mean, the church has obviously denied it, as they deny mountains of allegations over the years. They've spent decades dodging scrutiny. But It was surprising to see the coalition's willingness to jump to their defence. We had the Home Affairs Minister, Tony Burke, immediately calling a press conference about the revelations, saying, paying far-right figures to bully and intimidate politicians presents a huge problem for democracy. This needs to be looked into. Climate 200, a major Teals donor, they've already referred the church to the charity regulator for investigation, as they may have broken laws doing this. Even Nationals MP Michael McCormack, the former leader of the Nationals, he said, look, this needs to be investigated. But yet you had Angus Taylor very eager to defend the church, calling it a witch hunt, religious discrimination, to even be asking them questions about who they are when they're out campaigning. You had the National leaders, Matt Canavan, again also defending the church. Taylor even spent the weekend at a charity bike ride for another of the Brethren's charity arms called the Rapid Relief Team, which the church created maybe about 15 years ago with the help of a PR firm, because the UK at the time was questioning taking away its tax-exempt charity status. And it uses that charity regularly to engage with people of influence, including the Liberal Party. So the chair of there's a committee, a parliamentary committee on at the moment, examining the election of 2025, and a big part of that is the role the Brethren played. And the chair of the committee, a Liberal MP called Jerome Laxale, he was himself targeted by the stunts. He's now considering some of the church's testimony, because the church was called the same day our revelations came out in the newspaper. We had a spokesman for the church giving evidence, and Jerome is now wondering, I guess, about things such as false testimony and contempt of Parliament, because he says he got very few answers from that testimony.
Coming up, is there actually anything illegal at play? Sherryn, the Brethren deny paying far-right activists to disrupt election events last year, and a spokesman actually gave evidence on Friday at this parliamentary inquiry. Tell me more about what he said.
Well, if you'd been at the inquiry, you might have thought you'd kind of stumbled into an episode of Utopia. The church spokesman, Lloyd, beamed into the hearing, and he wouldn't give sworn evidence, first of all.
Mr. Grimshaw, as you are a member of a church, you may wish to swear an oath on the Bible.
No.
Okay, all good.
Which, maybe took away a bit of the gravitas when he then said he wasn't sure, or he didn't think he'd been in group chats with far-right agitators.
I think it needs a bit of clarification here, because I'm not aware of being on any chats of what you discuss, what you described there.
Then it turned out he wasn't actually giving evidence for the church at all, but for a tiny charity registered under the church's name, which rebranded from the Exclusive Brethren years ago.
Yeah, so one thing I probably haven't outlined, I guess, is I'm here as a director of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Now, in Australia, that's a secretariat entity that is the charity in Australia. It's a small secretariat entity that does some general secretariat duties. For instance, it operates a website.
But he was, really adamant that the church had no involvement in this mass mobilisation of its members at the last election, which we know was a hugely expensive endeavour. They were bringing in thousands of people from outside electorates, putting them up in hotels. There were big ad spends, which we uncovered. He said, look, all of that was individual members taking it upon themselves to suddenly get involved in politics. And that's despite the sect's edict to shun the outside world. He said not a single cent of church money went to the campaign. That's despite those big ad spends on those mysterious posters we saw crop up, repeating Brethren lines like "Make Australia Happy Again." And the committee weren't buying it. They talked about bringing in the church's actual leader, Bruce Hales, to give evidence instead. So certainly I think that inquiry has a bit more ground to cover yet on exactly how the Brethren operated at the last election.
Okay, and having political affiliations is one thing, but covertly trying to influence election campaigns is another. So is what the Brethren is accused of here actually illegal? Because as a charity, there are rules around how they're supposed to act.
So, I mean, particularly charities aren't meant to sway elections and with this kind of improper conduct. So we've heard from a few different agencies that there might have been laws broken. There's a bit more, I think, still to uncover on that side of it. Certainly that's something the inquiry's looking at. They're also looking at Lloyd and the church for potentially giving false testimony as well and misleading Parliament, which is also a problem. But obviously these are sort of newer tactics they've been using. They're a bit more sneaky, a bit more maybe creative, we'll say, if we're being kind. And they've created more of an arm's length chain of plausible deniability. But these are the kind of influence campaigns you see, out of Russia and other places around the world. So obviously when this kind of stuff happens and we see people ambushing, gathering intel on politicians, tailing them to events and then threatening and attempting to intimidate them, this is something we have to take pretty seriously. There was also, separate to these stunts, a wave of stunts done by the neo-Nazis themselves. And some of that did devolve into proper threats, both online and more directly. And the Australian Federal Police actually set up a whole unit to try and investigate that and have arrested a few neo-Nazis over that. So we are heading towards these more sinister, dirty tricks kind of campaigns. And I know a lot of coalition sources spoke to me and said, look, this is not how we do politics. It's the deception and the intimidation that worries us. This isn't MAGA America, we shouldn't be operating like this.
Well, Sherryn, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Ruby.
Also in the news, AFL Chief Executive Andrew Dillon has spoken to the media for the first time about the Swans scandal, announcing that the 5 suspended players will be banned from attending the Brownlow Awards. Dillon said there's potential for further AFL sanctions if more information comes to light, but in the meantime, the league would not be conducting any of its own inquiries until after the police investigation is concluded. Police from Victoria's Sexual Crime Squad are actively investigating a report of sexual assault. And police have raided 6 addresses, including the headquarters of the CFMEU in Melbourne. Police, who are investigating alleged union corruption and links to outlaw bikie gangs, took 5 people into custody. The raids are reportedly connected to the task force's operation targeting the former National Vice President of the Mongols. I'm Ruby Jones. This is 7am. Thanks for listening.